Hey everybody, Steve Billman here. Thanks for joining me. Hey, today we start our first video with the series called Mastering Rhythm. So today we're going to just deal with the basics. We're going to talk about a few things before we dive into reading rhythms. So the first thing I want to just mention is that music is a language. And with that language, there's a way to write it out. And so what we're going to talk about first is we're going to talk about the basics of writing out rhythms. So as I put on the screen up here, you're going to see what we call a staff. And music is written on staff paper. And the lines and the spaces of that staff will represent notes or what we call pitches. And it consists of the musical alphabet, which is A to G. So each one of those lines and each one of those spaces will represent a note. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into into music theory. That's going to be another series that I'm going to do. But I just want to mention this basic thing so that we can understand how rhythm works a little bit. So again, each one of those lines and spaces represent a pitch, a note. So we use pitches obviously to create melodies, also to create chords and different things. And what we do is on that staff, we would write the notes or the pitches that we want to play. But the problem is with a melody, if you just have the pitches, then you really don't have a complete melody because without knowing how long we're going to hold a certain note or a certain chord, then we're not really able to play it in a recognizable way. It's just notes. And notes are important as well, but without the rhythm, they're not defined. So rhythm is an important part of music. And again, I don't want to get today too far into the theory, but I just want to cover a couple things just so we can kind of understand how to read rhythms. So that's the first thing. The rhythm defines the length of the notes, right? So it's really important that we understand what rhythm is. All right. So now we're going to deal with note values. So I'm going to put on the screen, I'm going to put all the note values that we're going to deal with in this particular video series. So we're going to deal with whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, and triplets. We're going to deal with all of that. But in this first video, we're going to focus on whole notes and half notes, which might seem easy, but again, we want to have a strong foundation, so we're going to start at the very beginning. Okay? All right, so let's look at the whole notes. So you can see that a whole note is a round note that is not colored in, and there's no stem attached to it. So a stem, if you look at the half notes, is that little line that's connected to the note head. We call it a note head, and that represents a stem, okay? With a whole note, there's no stem, and the note is see-through. It's not solid. That represents 4 beats. So a whole note receives 4 beats or 4 counts. So if you look at the related to the time signature and related to the measures, my question is how many beats in a measure? That's right, there's 4. What note gets the beat? The quarter note. Okay, so what that means is we're going to play the whole note on each beat 1 of each measure. Okay, and we're going to hold it for the duration of the measure. Now, you don't just hit beat 1 and then stop. You actually hold the pitch. So for each measure, I'm going to hit beat 1, and then I'm going to let it go for the 4 beats. And then when we get to the next measure, second measure, I hit it again, and that goes on forever. Okay. So if we do 4 bars of whole notes, and I'm just going to randomly, pick a pitch. So sorry if it's not perfectly in tune, but I'm just going to pick a pitch, and we're going to sing 4 measures. Remember, each measure is represented by the end of the line, each line, and each measure is 4 counts. So here we go. I'm going to just use my finger right now. So this is representing the quarter note. Okay, so every time I snap, that's a count. Okay, and there's 4 of those per measure. So after 4 of these, I'm going to reattack the note. Okay, let's try it. So here's the whole note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 1, 1. So notice that for 4 measures, I hit the 1 of each measure and I held the note out. And because I'm singing, sometimes I have to breathe, so I have to cut the note a little bit short. But it literally should be held until you get to the next one. That is a whole note, okay? So a whole note receives 4 beats in length, okay? Now, if we take the next note value, so we go from whole note now, we go from half note, what you'll notice is that the half note is going to get 2 counts or 2 beats. Now, we've already stated that in a measure of 4/4 time, there has to be the equivalent of 4 quarter notes. It doesn't have to be 4 quarter notes. We just saw that I could play a whole note in the space of 4 quarter notes. It just has to equal 4 beats or 4 counts. So with a half note, that half note gets 2 counts. So I'm short. So can I put a half note in the space with it? So a half or a whole note, sorry. So a half note and a whole note, can I put those two together in a measure of 4/4? Well, think about it. Add those two numbers up. 2 beats for the half note, 4 beats for the whole note. How many beats is that? That's 6, right? I can't do that. So a whole note is only going to occupy itself, right? It can only be in one measure by itself because it already has 4 beats. It has too many beats. Now, if we were in 6/4 or 7/4, that's a different story. But in 4/4, it takes the whole measure, is what I'm trying to say. So what we have to do to fill that up right now, because we haven't, discovered any other rhythms, is we need to put another half note in that space. Half note, 2 beats, half note, 2 beats, 2 plus 2 equals 4. What you're going to find, you guys, with music and with especially rhythm, but music in general, is that there's logic in it and there's math in it. And it's pretty cool when you dive into it. It's a creative thing, but there's also logic behind it, which I really love because it's not just by chance, but there are numbers behind why things work the way they work. Okay. So for a full measure now of 4 counts, we need to have 2 whole notes. Again, I'm sorry, 2 half notes. Take it back. 2 half notes. So again, when we get to smaller note values, we can have those as well. But right now we're just dealing with whole notes and half notes. So 2 half notes are going to fill a whole measure, right? So what does that mean? That means now on beat 1, I'm going to sound the first half note. And then on beat 3, I'm going to sound the second half note. So you can see that now in a measure, there's 2 notes instead of 1 note. All right. So if we do 4 bars of half notes, let's see what it would sound like. Again, I'm going to count the measures on my finger and I'm going to snap the beats. Okay. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. So let's do the rhythms. All right. Before we get to that, I just want to mention a couple things. One is I am going to use a metronome. And it's on 60 beats per minute, but you can start it as slow as you need to do it, or if it's too slow, when you're practicing it, you can speed it up. I encourage you, especially when you're beginning to learn something, it's good to use a metronome, but eventually we can get away from it, and there's something you can do with the metronome which will not treat the metronome as a babysitter, and I'll explain what that is later. But right now, just start with the metronome and sing these rhythms with it, okay? The other thing I want to talk about too is conducting. Conducting, when I was at Berklee and I was doing the sight singing classes, they required us to conduct while we sang the rhythms and sang the melodies. And I think it's a good idea just in the sense that you can count the rhythms, and you can see where the rhythms are falling by counting, which is good. But physically, you can really see with when you're conducting, you can really see where the beats are, and a lot of times this will help us to learn the rhythms better. So at first, maybe it's not something you want to do, but I would encourage you to actually try it. Okay, so maybe at first you just want to run through the rhythms and practice them, but once you get comfortable with the whole notes and half notes, then you can add the conducting, and it's very simple. So I'll just show you the very simple pattern. So with my hand, I go down, that's one. I go over to the left, that's two, to my left. I go over to my right, that's three, and then back up, that's beat four. So one, two, three, four. One, two, three. And again, the nice thing about this is that you can see exactly where each beat is. So again, at first, I don't expect you to do that. If it's too much, don't worry about it. Just read the rhythms, count the rhythms. But eventually, if you're able to include the conducting pattern, I really recommend it because I think visually it helps us to see the beats. Okay? All right. So I'm going to start the metronome. That high pitch, obviously, that's beat one. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to just take each example that you see on the screen one at a time. Sorry, I've got to read it over here, so I'm not looking at the camera. But I'll count us in. Notice that the parentheses represent, let me turn that off for a second. The parentheses represent the notes that we count, but that we don't sing or we don't say, okay? And again, I'm just gonna find one pitch. Sorry if it's not part of the tuned instrument, but I'm just gonna sing one pitch and then you guys join me, okay? So here we go. Starting with example one, I'll give you 4 counts and then we're gonna start. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1. All right. So there you go. We just read a rhythm. Good job, you guys. Easy, but still, it's foundational. And once we get this foundation, then we can go on to harder stuff. So one thing I want you to notice on the music is you see those bars that we were talking about. But notice that in the beginning of that 8-bar phrase and the ending of those 8 bars, there are darker lines with 2 little dots. So the first one is the beginning, what we call it, they're called repeat signs. The first one is the beginning of the repeat, and then the second one is the end of the repeat. So when you get to that 8th bar, you go back to that first bar and you play it through one more time. The repeat is always good for one repeat unless it's otherwise indicated, like sometimes above that they'll put play 3 times or 4 times. But if there's nothing like that indicated, it just means that you repeat the whole thing, the whole 8 bars, one more time. Okay? So as you guys are practicing this, keep that in mind that when you get to that 8th bar the first time, you're going to go back and you're going to do it again. I'm just not doing it for time's sake right now, but in your practice time, I would recommend doing that. Okay? All right, good job. Let's look at example 2 now. All right, so again, there are only half notes and whole notes, but they're in different combinations now. So here we go. I'll give you 4 counts. And 1, 2, ready, and 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. All right, there we go. So you can see that I've got my hand keeping where the beats are. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm singing the rhythms, but at the same time, I'm counting them in my head. I'm keeping track of each one of those clicks. And whenever it's a half note, I know they get 2 clicks or 2 beats. And if it's a whole note, I know that they get four clicks. And again, the clicks, the beats, all represented by counts. So when I say those three things, they're the same thing: a beat, a count. Okay, and also when my hand is going, that's representing each one of those beats as well. So eventually, if you can do all of those things, counting and conducting at the same time, that's great. But do what you need to do right now. If this is new to you, don't overwhelm yourself. Just get the rhythms correctly. Just be able to sing them correctly. All right, enough talking. Let's try the last one. Here's example 3. Again, only half notes and whole notes, but now they're in a different order. So I'm going to count it in. Here we go. And 1, 2, ready, sing. 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1. 1, 1, 3. There you go. And again, with each one of these examples, notice that they have repeats. So every time on each example you get to that 8th bar, you can go back to the first bar and sing it through one more time, and then you're done. Okay? All right. So there you go. There's our introduction to rhythms. So again, today we're dealing with whole notes, 4 beats, 4 counts, half notes, 2 beats or 2 counts. This comes from my book that I've written called Mastering Rhythm. And if you're interested, it has more examples for you to practice. You can get it on my website, mastermusicnow.com. But really, you can pick up any rhythm book. There's tons of them out there. And just go through and practice your rhythms. Just practice your whole notes, your half notes. I would do this page that's on the screen as much as you can. Um, if you get the book, then you'll be able to change the metronome marking as well. So it'd be a good idea, for instance, for this particular page, to be able to do it faster. Like if you're getting it slower, then turn it up faster. And this is 60 beats. Maybe do it 120 or 150. And again, that's just going to deepen your skill level for counting rhythms. Okay, so there's a lot to get just from the whole notes and half notes, because we can slow the tempo down, we can speed it up, and sometimes the slower tempo is actually harder. So there's a lot we can get out of just this much that we did today. But I would encourage you to get the book, or to get some other book that has some form of rhythms in it so that you can practice your counting. Okay. All right, you guys. Well, it's been a pleasure being with you. I hope this helped, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, God bless you. Take care.